sometimes it's easy to set your priorities, but forget that you're driving toward outcomes. Can you share some of your thinking about that, Adam?
Sure, and some of the insights start with our work on leadership teams because when we work with teams, we often ask them like, "What are your priorities?" And often we are given lists that are 12 things long. One of my partners told me that a leadership team handed him a list of priorities that was 182 items long. And if, first of all, if you believe in the sort of Jim Collins saying that if you have more than three priorities, you don't have priorities, right? So I think the first insight is that most lists of priorities are too long. And I think if you pause and say, well, why is that? And one of the reasons is because if you're, a leader, you want to sort of demonstrate that you've got your arms around all the challenges, right? Another dynamic that kicks in is that if you've got a leadership team of 8 people, then it's natural for every one of them to want to get sort of acknowledged that what they're doing is important. So suddenly if you've got 8 people on your leadership team, then there's 8 priorities reflecting each of those. And so there's all these traps that people fall into. But the other thing, this idea, I realize that the word priority itself is problematic because it's ambiguous, it's amorphous. Implicit in it is this idea of like, I'm always working on this. And, as I said, I'm wired to sort of spot patterns. And as I've seen more and more lists of priorities, I started noticing how many bullet points start with the same 2 words. And those 2 words are continue to. And for me, it's like, okay, if that's really a priority and you're saying you're going to continue to do it, well, isn't that something that you always do? And is it really a priority? I mean, as a human being, I need to, sleep and eat and breathe, but I wouldn't put those on my list of priorities, right? So shifting the conversation to outcomes, I think, leads to a much more concrete and practical discussion. The simple question of 12 months from now, when we look back, what are the 2 or 3 things we need to have accomplished for this to be a good year? And just that conversation has this kind of breakthrough effect on leadership teams like, oh, okay, what do we need to achieve rather than stuff we're always going to be working on in perpetuity?